Hi, I'm Alec from easierhabits.com, and I coach entrepreneurs on how to start and grow a business that changes lives for the better. And maybe you've been in this situation where you go to a conference or networking event and there's a billion people to talk to, but it feels overwhelming and you feel awkward. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's not your fault. That's actually probably because the event itself is awkward, so you don't need to internalize that awkwardness. I'll give you some tips on how to structure a positive networking event or community, and also how you, as a participant, regardless of the quality of the networking event, can bring some skills to that networking to make that less painfully awkward and more effective for you. Recently, I was headhunted for a networking event, and because I was recruited for it and invited as a guest, I'm sure there was some kind of catch or sales pitch. And of course, there was. This networking event was basically a recruiting event for a mastermind. Now, that's okay, right? But I don't have to attend the mastermind, or I might find that's my thing. It's okay for them to pitch something, create an event to pitch something. But if you're pitching your invitation to the event, one, doesn't tell you what the sales pitch is, a little bit shady. And two, if basically what you're pitching is networking, you want an event that works successfully for networking. How was this event structured? It was about 30 minutes of unstructured talking time. It was virtual, so you sit down at a virtual table and it's basically a virtual chat room, and you just chat with who's ever there, or move if there isn't much conversation at your table. And then there was a 5-minute keynote. It was a very kind of basic general business advice keynote, 5 minutes. It's hard to say something very memorable in just 5 minutes. There was an introduction to the mind map group, and a lot of it looked like a video presentation with stock footage and the presenter basically reading off of his sheet. There was nothing particularly moving there, so it wasn't an effective sales pitch. There was almost an hour of introducing people, and so this, I guess, was the networking part of it, and the only really structured part of it, where they brought up various entrepreneurs. They gave them a quick intro, and then that entrepreneur further introduced themselves, basically gave their 60-second sales pitch. And that was good practice for me. I don't do that a lot in terms of going to events and giving a 60-second sales pitch. And so it was a good speaking opportunity, learning opportunity for me. But I didn't really connect to people over that. There was a couple of people that stood out because they did have stronger presence. And there's one person who stood out because he offered an interesting product and promised huge results, and actually was for digital business cards. And so I hadn't really been considering using digital business cards in my marketing. And so that was very helpful. But I didn't really connect to any of these people. It's hard to connect with someone over what is essentially a sales pitch, right? You don't know what to talk about next, except for like, hey, that's a cool product, right? Which is very impersonal conversation. And it feels very stilted, right? You don't generally tend to want to form close relationship with salespeople. And so if your interaction with other entrepreneurs at a networking event, or other people in your profession at a networking event is giving a sales pitch, that actually kind of disincentivizes people to get close to you, right? You feel like, oh, if I talk to this person, they're just going to pitch me more because they're a salesperson, right? And the last chunk was called a breakout session, which was just more unstructured time talking at tables. So I went through this whole experience, and I was noticing I felt really nervous, which is kind of strange. I like meeting people. I get excited to talk to people. I can be an introvert, but I also appreciate the opportunities from an event. But one thing I have noticed, and this is where I realized that the awkwardness I feel is unrelated to my general awkwardness. I am plenty awkward on my own. But the reason I feel more awkward than usual at this kind of networking event, and why I wasn't excited instead, was because they gave me nothing to be excited about, right? They said it's a networking event. There's no topic. There's no goal or outcome. You just kind of randomly talk to whoever shows up. And I don't really need someone to create an event where I can randomly show up, right? I could do that in Clubhouse. I could do that, I could join some Discord server for something I am interested in, and at least there would be a topic, right? You can have asynchronous conversations and Quora, or there's all sorts of places to just have conversations with strangers, right? That's not really a benefit in today's society. It's not really a value. So like if your whole value proposition for running an event, especially a sales event, if it's like networking, then you'd have to do some things to actually facilitate um, connections, real connections between people, not just like sitting them down at the same table and say, you can talk if you want, right? People have plenty of opportunities to do that. They have too many opportunities to do that, right? And so I'm going to go over what makes a good networking event and what you can do as a participant to get more out of a networking event, regardless of whether the event itself is awkwardness inducing. All right. So the first thing you can do to make networking events and communities better is to do personal introductions, right? This is the ultimate networking, because if you are a person who knows two people that would fit well together, you can get the right people in the right place at the same time and having the conversation on the right topic, right? It's really easy to naturally segue into that. And I was recently talking to someone who said they went to an event, they loved the sense of community. The host there would literally grab you and say, you need to talk with this person over here, and then help you facilitate that conversation. And so that's great. That is absolutely fantastic. And if your prime value is bringing networking and connections to people and you don't know your community members well enough to make introductions, maybe you're in the wrong business. Maybe you need to offer a different value proposition, right? Maybe you just need to offer a seminar and give people time to talk afterwards, right? That is a much better value proposition for an event or a community if you don't want to be making personal introductions, if you're not actually good at doing that. All right. So that is kind of a little gut reality check. If you don't want to do that, don't offer networking as your value prop. But the second thing that you can do to improve your events is simply have a topic, right? Draw people who are interested in a topic. One, this is a much easier marketing draw rather than saying we're having a networking event, right? You'll get a very random set of people. But if you have a networking event around a topic in terms of, and this is done a little bit better if you're not like a mastermind, and apparently this mastermind was trying to have a multiplicity of careers to get different perspectives. If you're going to a professional career-based networking event, there usually is some sort of topic, right? But you can niche down, right? Even if you are people in artificial intelligence, right? There are interesting topics or challenges within the field of artificial intelligence. So if you're a professional association creating those networking events, niche down even more, right? Give people something to talk about. And so if you go to this event, you'll know people are thinking about that conversation broadly, that people's minds are primed to ask questions or answer on the subject so conversation can flow more easily. And if you are having interesting conversations around a topic that matters to you, it will be more memorable and easier to form associations and connections. All right, so the third thing you can do in an event if you want to foster relationships is actually having giving and taking, actually having value, helping each other, creating reciprocity. And so one example of this is more of a community example than a networking event, but I thought it was fantastic. My wife said there's a clubhouse group for Japanese entrepreneurs where they basically do an entrepreneurial bake sale. Instead of baking goods and then donating the money to the group, they offer whatever product or services they have, and the proceeds of those sales go to the group. And then the group crowdfunds particular people who've submitted like business proposals to help them expand their business. That is a great example of giving people an opportunity to give, giving people an opportunity to receive. That's kind of intense, but on a maybe more easy level to reproduce, a less intense version, right? Money changing hands can create a lot of problems. So maybe something else that could have been done, especially, for example, this group that's trying to sell masterminds, right? They could have had one person up there do a hot seat where they talk about a challenge they're facing and give people the opportunity to offer advice. What does this do? Well, this allows people coming in to help another person, which makes them feel good, right? That would be great. If this person gets a lot of help, especially if you're selling the mastermind, right? You see this person getting a lot of help and you think, that'd be great. I'd like that kind of help. Like that would be an effective sales mechanism. But beyond that, if you help them, you can easily and very naturally go ahead and ask for their information and follow up. Hey, I'd like to see how this turns out for you. Do you mind if I, follow up in a week or two? And that is a great way to, if you're on the giving side, create reciprocity. On the same side, if you're on the receiving side, you can come up and thank someone for their advice, ask for their information, and follow up with a thank you note. Both of those things are very, very natural way and more meaningful, right? Are you going to remember the small talk you had at a random big conference, over lunch, or are you going to remember somebody who helped you out or whom you helped out? So those contacts will be more memorable and they will be much easier to follow up on, much more natural. And it's these types of things that can take even introverted people and create a sense of excitement and community around the networking, right? You're actually creating relationships when there's a give and take. Another different version of this on Clubhouse was my wife was in the same entrepreneurs group, and she does a lot of talking around language, and she helps a lot of the various meetings. She's run a few meetings, she's the presenter a lot. And one of the people at running the event just simply asked her, how can we help you? And so that invited her without, officially creating a hot seat to talk about, what she's working on, what her challenges, what her next steps are. And right then and there, they organized some community resources around helping my wife do marketing on X. And so that is a great example, a very simple example of creating a little give and take, a little reciprocity that can turn into stronger relationships. All right. So what can you do if you're attending an event, especially if you felt nervous or awkward about networking events in the past? One is just recognize that a lot of the awkwardness you felt is because you've been to poorly planned networking meetings. There's a lot of them. All right. When there is a topic to look forward to or a good structure that you realize will make it really clear on how to meet people and how to follow up with people, then a lot of the awkwardness goes away and it can be replaced with excitement. So it's not all on you if you feel awkward at networking events. And you can also recognize not only is it not on you, but most people probably feel the same way. Now, how to feel a little bit less awkward in practice, right? What are practical things you can do rather than, cultivate mindfulness? Well, one thing is, even if the people creating the networking event don't create topics of interest, create your own topics of interest. What are you reading about recently that you're interested? What are the challenges you're into and you're thinking about? What are questions you want answered, right? And this is great because it feels a little bit slimy sometimes trying to get to know people for the sake of your business, right? But if you're not trying to do that, right? If you're trying to get your questions answered, it is much more natural to get a question answered and say, hey, that was really helpful. Can I connect, right? That is so much more natural than, hey, I'm in this business too. Let's connect on LinkedIn and never talk again, right? There's a huge difference between those two. So bring your own topics, right? And the last one is create your own reciprocity. And that kind of leads into the own topics. If some of these topics that you're bringing are your personal challenges and you're open, like, hey, I am struggling with this new product line, what could I do? Then you create a chance for people to give to you, and you can create some of that reciprocity that makes it easy to follow up with a thank you note. And that is basically a simple way of doing that. And it doesn't have to be a big confession about your business. It can be just, hey, I don't know much about structuring my company's finances. And so you can keep an eye out if that's something you're interested in for someone who has that skill set, or ask someone like, hey, how do you handle that? Or who did you get to handle this for you? It could be whatever, it could be marketing, could be product development, whatever you're interested in, you can do that. Now, of course, if you do let people know, it's like, hey, I have this particular business problem, and you get into the details and you're vulnerable, that is often actually rewarded because people can give you better information. They'll feel closer to you. They're more likely to be open with you, and that will create more personal relationships. Now, don't necessarily overshare, but I think most people do the opposite when they come to events, is they try and say, I provide, people with the one, this is for coaches. There's a lot of BS coach advertising. I will teach you the one secret you need to get to 6 figures in 1 month. And maybe they have had someone do that, but it was someone who was really close to that, and it's not representative of their average, coaching people. It's that kind of like business speak that people kind of sense, whether you're full of BS or whether you're actually a real human being or whether you're a walking advertisement, and whether even that advertisement sounds legit or not. And so you will shut people down if you lead with that. Now, I guess one last piece of advice, you don't have to only talk about your vulnerabilities, but if you want to talk about what you do well, then think about this. What from your business has gotten you excited? An example of this, of how to talk about your business in a way that's relatable and doesn't seem full of yourself and doesn't seem like an ad, is tell your customers or clients success stories that get you excited, right? Don't make it about you. So I'm a coach, and my whole business is transformation. I transform people who are stuck in the business, who have waited years to start a business, or have started a business, swung for the fences, and missed, and are trying to figure out, like, all right, how do I start a new business, whether it's a brand new business or new product line. And so that's the business I'm in. Is, feel free to explain what it is you do. But what you want to spend the time on is less that and more of, well, last week I talked to someone who hasn't done any health exercise for a while, and we've worked with them, and they have hit their exercise every day. They're feeling a difference in their ability to focus and their ability to manage stress. They feel 100% better, and so now they're ready to work. All right, that's an example of a transformation, right? And it's not about me. I mentioned I worked with someone, right? But it's about somebody else's transformation, and someone's transformation in my services or with my product. But that is a much more engaging way to signal to people that you're not focused on people talking to you and how great you are and how many degrees you have, or whatever it is, right? How much revenue you have, blah, blah, blah. But you're focused on the well-being of the people you serve. That is a powerful message to send. So you can be vulnerable. You can kind of brag a little bit, but you brag about your customers, brag about your clients. And those are the things that will help you connect, so that instead of just pitching like, hi, I'm Alec, I'm a coach, I help people see results in their business. Last year, I helped this random number of people get this random number of income, right? Talk about specific transformations that you've seen. Of course, if you're coaching, you have to be very careful to give examples or get permission to use stories, right? Rather than telling people's personal stories. But, depending on what it is you're selling or what your service is, there might be, more or less freedom around that, and be cognizant when you're telling customer stories of their own privacy, right? But certainly if someone gives you a testimonial, you can kind of share their story that way. So these are a few examples of why, if you feel awkward at networking events, it's not you, it's the event. How these networking events and communities can be improved if you are organizing or planning them as part of your business. And lastly, if you're attending them, what you can do regardless of the quality of the networking event to make it better. And shifting your goals in these last few ways from I need to get X amount of contacts to I want these questions answered, these challenges answers. I want to learn more about this topic. That will be really helpful and instrumental, because even if you don't get a contact that's meaningful or helpful or get a sale out of it, you're still learning, right? And that's kind of what I felt with my admittedly awkward networking experience. I came up with this interesting idea of digital business cards, which I didn't know before. That was kind of serendipitous. I wish in retrospect I had been a little bit more focused and come in with, hey, I am wondering how to pitch myself. And to be honest, here's my 3 pitches. Yeah, this would be so much better than the pitch I did give, by the way, actually. So, lead with a challenge. Hey, I'm trying to pitch myself. I help entrepreneurs do this. I'm still working on this tagline. And so I have options A, B, if you have time, A, B, C. Come up to me afterwards and tell me which option you liked. That would have been better, even though it's kind of vulnerable and saying like, I'm not sure how to pitch myself, right? But that would have invited people to talk to me. So much more powerful than, giving an ad about yourself, which is essentially what I did. So I make mistakes, everyone makes mistakes. It's all about learning from mistakes or learning from the challenges in front of you. And until next week, go ahead and change your life one small habit at a time. I realized after making this video that it would be helpful to create a simple networking guide. So if you have felt like networking is awkward or overwhelming, or simply it feels like a chore and not very effective one at that, then you can hop on over to easierhabits.com. I have a PDF you can download, one page oriented around 3 simple but powerful conversation topics that can get people talking about things that matter to them, that can, like this video has talked about, open the gates for reciprocity for you to help them or them to help you, and make it easier to follow up and actually form meaningful relationships rather than just getting a bunch of contacts in your networking app of choice. So go ahead on over to easierhabits.com, link below in the description, to get that PDF.